where it's probably better, though, is Florida.
Yeah, usually.
Probably.
Yeah.
In an air-conditioned studio somewhere in Florida is Dan Bongino, former NYPD officer, former Secret Service agent, good friend of the show, and the host of the Dan Bongino Show. Good morning, Dan. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, this studio is in my house, and Florida actually stinks today. The weather is awful, so
it's
the
only
shoes have been
60
put
or
on the
something.
opposite feet.
Unfortunately, I don't feel your pain, Dan.
Yeah.
New York has
Yeah,
experienced
I
the
know.
worst.
You've had enough goodness.
Yeah.
So what do you think about Andrew McCabe, the former deputy director, already in trouble, lying, leaking, now raking in nearly $500,000 for his legal defense in less than a day on GoFundMe? We're told he has all kinds of assets. And sure, everyone's entitled to mount a legal defense, but he's already got money in the bank, and this guy who was lying and leaking on the public dime is now saying on GoFundMe, give me your cash.
Yeah, listen, man, I'm all about the free market. You want to give your money over to a guy who's got tremendous numbers of assets, that's fine. But this is what I find interesting about this ideologically, right? A lot of the liberals I talk to typically shun philanthropy in favor of government funding. Now they've finally found a philanthropic cause they love, government corruption. It's like, no, this is the time for charity. Let's pile in all our assets to defend a guy who was terminated from his job for, at best, misfeasance, at worst, what could have been malfeasance. And one more point on this, though, guys. You know, in the private sector, a guy who had screwed up as badly as McCabe, he'd probably be looking at a clawback of his past salary, not a $500,000 GoFundMe fund.
And that's in a day. He's going to get even more. He's going to get even more.
It's astonishing. Hey, do what you want with your money. You know what? What is that old saying? You know, a fool and his money are soon departed. So, are soon parted. So good luck donating to Andrew
All right,
McCabe.
well, I'm sure you've seen this rant by now, but a sixth grade teacher in Georgia was recorded by one of her students ranting about the president, talking about immigration in this country, and even pointing to the students at one point, saying, if you're calling illegal immigrants killers, you are too, because we are all immigrants. It is astonishing. Here's just part of that. Take a listen.
When I examine history, I can't remember a time when it was great for anybody other than the Europeans.
They're probably talking about the point before all of the illegal immigrants were coming.
Every person sitting in this room is an immigrant. Every one of you. So when you say immigrants were killing people, you are talking about yourself.
Dan, what on earth?
I mean, what were you thinking? I don't understand this. You know, this is puzzling to me because I was leaving in an airport not that long ago, and I got confronted by a liberal, and this happens to me a lot now that they see me on the network. And they're the most sensitive people around. They feel the need to take liberties with you in public and scream and yell. But yet, when it comes to us, we just want to be left alone. What were you thinking as an unquestioned liberal? This teacher was attacking our kids like that on what was a basically fair question. And on this, too, this topic, I get it. Listen. Nobody here is ever going to dispute Americans' scarred history with race. Nobody. And we never should, and we should never, ever forget that. That was built into who we were, and we should remember it all the time so we never, ever go back to those days. But why not for a second give a more balanced approach as well and acknowledge all of the people who sacrificed to get rid of Jim Crow, the people who sacrificed in the Civil War to wipe the stain of slavery free from our country? Why not that? Why not give a balanced approach and stop painting America as this hellhole that it isn't? This is the greatest place on earth.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, you say, what were they thinking? I mean, I think they are thinking, and they're saying, well, I've got a point of view, and I want the kids to mirror or mimic what I have to say. I mean, that sounds more like indoctrination than actual teaching.
You know, why do you send your kids to school, Pete? You don't send them to school for propaganda. You send them to school for learning. This whole liberal thing now that we're going to send these kids to school to make them little foot soldiers for liberal causes is just bizarre. I mean, it's one of the reasons I took my kids out of public school. I can't take it anymore. I send my kids to learn, not to become loyal liberal voters in the future. It's really a shame what's happened here because my tax dollars pay for this too. I have a right, and I should have some input into this too. Teach, don't propagandize.
Yeah. But also remind your students why they do live in the greatest country on earth, and that we learn, as you said, from those mistakes. Why do immigrants want to come to this country? Because we can live that American dream and they can have a better life. That's the irony of the whole thing.
You know, Abby, we've always been that lighthouse in the fog. I mean, there are so many failed countries that come before us. You should thank the Lord every single day. You not only live in America, but you live in America right now, the greatest country on earth, where you can voice these opinions, by the way, with no fear of government coming after you. This is the greatest place on earth. Thank the Lord for it.
It's such a great point. And so many of those previous countries that did fail, they failed because they stopped believing in themselves or believing in the core values upon which they were founded. And if you don't continue to teach them in a balanced way in the classroom, kids will either forget them or totally reject them, which is what we see more than people think in public schools today.
Yeah.
Pete, that national anthem still brings a tear to my eye, man. This place matters. It should matter. We've been rough. We've had some scars, but we're still the greatest place on earth. Kiss the ground,
See,
man.
he does have some emotion in him.
There he is there for his country.
He also has 3 daughters, so.
Love it, Dan.
I hear you.
Thanks a lot.
Dan, good to see you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, turning now to some other headlines that we're following this morning. A 3-day manhunt for a violent deportee coming to an end. ICE agents arresting this man at a Chicago Starbucks. He escaped authorities fleeing off in a taxi at New York's JFK Airport moments before being deported to Senegal. Previously arrested on a weapons charge, he will now face prosecution for his escape. And another state tightening gun laws. Vermont lawmakers now sending a measure to Governor Phil Scott's desk. The measure would raise the legal age to buy a gun to 21, expand background checks for private gun sales, and ban high-capacity magazines and bump stocks. Governor Scott vowing to sign that bill, making Vermont the latest state to change its gun laws after last month's Parkland school massacre. Also, Arnold Schwarzenegger